see here. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by author of the Dark Shadows Daybook, Patrick McCray. How are you, man?
I am great. I am better than any human has any right to be at any point in human history.
So we're here to talk about the 1995 timeline where you have Barnabas Collins and Dr. Julie Hoffman coming back from 1970, parallel time of all things, and they come to back to Collinwood, and it's not the Collinwood they once knew. It's a total wreck. You have the drawing room in ruins. What did you think of this, man?
It was Jeb's bachelor party all over again. What did I think of that moment, or what do I think of this arc of the series overall?
Both.
That moment is easily, I think, the most shocking and apocalyptic moment, really, in Dark Shadows. Up to that point, I think we've seen characters in peril before, but we've never seen the house and the entire universe of Dark Shadows in peril before. And it's a move that I kind of wish they had really known the show was going off the air. It's helpful for us to know that because we know more than the people who made the show exactly that it's playing for keeps in a really big way. That you can't come back from that. This is not Vicky wringing her hands over a pen.
Right.
This is serious, and it's not even, oh, Maggie's been kidnapped, and there's a ghost. No, this is apocalyptic. We don't know how far this spreads out into the world.
Right.
And we have seen something really beautiful made ugly. And I keep thinking about the fact that this is happening in and around the time of the Manson murders, and the 60s just got one unbelievable wake-up call with Vietnam and so on and so forth. And I'm kind of thinking about the show as being sandwiched in between the Kennedy assassination 3 years before they went on the air, which and then the Sharon Tate murder. Because on one hand, with the Kennedy assassination, you're certainly saying the United States is a darker place than you thought, and that figures of authority are subject to terrible things happening, but they are figures of authority, and that's part of the risk of taking office, is having that kind of danger. I mean, that's why you have the Secret Service. But when we see that kind of the necrotic madness of the moral decay that was going on at that time, then spreading to a beautiful pregnant woman and her hairdresser pal in Hollywood, and suddenly nothing is safe.
Right.
And Collinwood's not safe. So if this won't absolutely make you stand up and pay attention, nothing will. As the sequence goes on, I find it's not bad, but good golly, is it difficult to watch?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's just like being at it's like getting oncology results, and I'm not saying that to minimize that kind of experience. It's just like, okay, what else bad is going to happen? How long do we have? What's going to go on? And I don't think I've seen the worst of it. It's really, really tough to watch because you're basically being programmed for hopelessness. That in all of this, and Barnabas has a great speech in there about how he's not going to take this lying down. How he's going to go. He's going to take this on. He's going to solve the mystery. He's going to save Colin. It's a great moment. And I like that. The If there is a problem with it, it's that the writers never supplied him with that one faint glimmer of hope, with the newspaper that says, Emmett Brown jailed and Emmett Brown hailed or whatever, so that they know that there's a difference, that there's a possible good future that they can rest. As far as they know, this really is the future,
Right.
and it's just an incredibly ugly countdown.
I really love the fact that they go full tilt, just doom. Doom is here. It's not imminent. It's here. It's in your face.
It happened.
Right.
It's already happened. We haven't averted it at all.
Right. When they come back, it's just, here's Collinwood. It's a mess. It's a wreck. We've never seen the house just gutted this way. And that's what it felt like too. It felt gutted and just heartbreaking. And I think, well, I want to ask you first, what was the moment that made you go, well, what moment shocked you the most in 1995, I should say?
I mean, I think Carolyn's death is pretty bad news. I and the whole thing about Julia and Gerard.
Yeah.
And what happens there, and that the writers are really, I think, heavily implying that some sort of ghost rape or something happened, and that Julia was complicit in it, maybe, kind of, sort of. And that's one of the things about Gerard and the intense evil of Gerard, is that Quentin just kind of does bad things. Gerard gets people to do the things they really want to do, and those things are really bad. And so Gerard is just all about showing you what kind of mess you are inside, and uncorking it and just letting it sprawl out all over the room.
Yeah.
And I think that notion that the real enemy is the one that we can't quite the enemy that we can't quite get away from, the one over our shoulder.
Yeah. It makes me, there's a moment in Ghostbusters where Dan Aykroyd's character is dreaming, and he's enjoying the dream because
this is where he's inexplicably in the Napoleonic military uniform, right? Right, isn't he?
Right. And
he's not only having a ghost sex dream, but he's having a ghost sex dream as a Napoleonic soldier.
Yeah.
Which is how it's done.
Yes. It makes me think of that, but sort of worse, where the experience that Julia goes through with Gerard. It's a mix between lust and the regret of lust.
Sure.
And
it's a very Catholic sequence.
It is. And it's like literally taking one of the 10 commandments and just spitting on it. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it just felt so heart-wrenching. My moment of this 1995 where I went, oh, like it just kept, it's like they kept in these 9 episodes, they kept topping how bad this was in 9 episodes. And my moment was not just first of all, seeing David Collins's grave was just like,
yeah, it happened.
It happened there. And then David Selby saying, that's not David, that's Tad. And it's like, because that's what I thought at first too. I was like Barnabas. I thought, well, somehow David is trapped in the past. That's what I felt like. And it's like, nope. He's dead. And it's like,
he's dead, Jim.
It felt like getting gut punched and kicked in the face all at once.
Yeah, getting gut punched so hard it goes through to your face.
Right. And it's just like, holy shit. What did you think of Crazy Carolyn before she dies?
She really, really, really held on to that red lipstick. The red lipstick is the creepiest and most accurate piece of weird old ladydom they gave her.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. That just said crazy more than anything, because it was this attempt to appear normal, but it's got these weird peaks that she's kind of poorly painted on. All camp aside, that makeup choice, that design choice, is one of the most disturbing ones on the show.
Really.
I mean, Crazy Carolyn was Carolyn was always kind of to me, seeing Quentin so broken.
Yeah.
Because Gerard is the era of ghost he would have been scared of as a kid.
Right.
And because it would have been a ghost from his grandparents' era,
Right.
from around the time his parents were born. And so, I mean, there's a chance he might have seen Gerard wandering around the house, in spectral form at some point. And I think it's one of the reasons why Judah chose Gerard as an avatar, was specifically to mess with Quentin's mind. And, and then to see what happens to Quentin's fashion sense.
Yeah.
Where he's doing Walton's cosplay. In those weird suspenders and everything else, which I assume is what David Selby wore for his audition when he came in from West Virginia. I'm not certain, but even that, they picked good crazy clothes for him to be wearing. Now, if Criswell, host of Plan 9 from Outer Space, had been accurate in the year 1995, they would have been nude. And so that is one technical inaccuracy that we just have to live with. But where would the sheriff have put his bullets?
It looked like he was straight out of a loony bin. The Quentin.
Oh yeah, those. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're not going to give him a belt.
Right? No, they're not. They're not. There's literally a psychological, not just a physical damage, but the psychological damage. Everything in these 9 episodes is boom, boom, boom. You literally have them coming back, them trying to find out what's going on, them seeing Carolyn. And when she shows Barnabas's portrait, she goes, "How long have you been here?" "I've been here since the beginning." He's very serious, but he's also like very somber about it, to the point of he's sad to see her like this. Like, even like, we know how he had her, where he had bit her. But even he
that
finds,
was her at her best.
Right. Even he finds this is cruel. This, Barnabas is so disturbed. And, Barnabas has been, look, we know how much Barnabas has been through. Angelique, Patofe, he's been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But just when he thinks he's seen the worst, it's like, no, this is the worst.
Sure. And he's just coming off yet another woman he can't save, Roxanne.
Yep.
And what's he run right into? Another woman he can't save, Carolyn.
Yep.
Yeah. It's as a piece of storytelling, I honestly think it's too depressing. It is oppressive, and it's tough to watch. Now, Roger Ebert had a really good quote, which was, "Pass me another ham sandwich." But he also had another good quote where he liked ham. He had another good quote where I think he was quoting someone else, where he said, "No great movie is ever truly depressing. Every bad movie is." And the fact that I find this depressing is tough for me to deal with, because it does lead into technically my favorite part of the series. And I like 1995 and what it does. And they had to stretch it out for about 9 episodes?
Yeah.
So that people who were watching every other day or even just once a week could kind of get an idea of what was going on. So if you're one of those crybabies who says, "Oh, I couldn't follow the series this time," oh, come on, get off. They were giving you lots of opportunities, for gosh sakes. Anyway, but still, if they were to do this, in the modern series, one episode, 2 episodes tops, after a while, it's just like, how much more doom and gloom can we take?
I think that to sort of, I think I like these more than you do, and here's why.
I don't dislike them.
No, I know.
God, they're tough. They're tough
I
to
know.
watch.
We did a podcast, me, you, and Butch, paying tribute to the late great George A. Romero.
I wasn't there. George Romero was there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This reminds me, Dark Shadows. I love it. I love it. What Dark Shadows was doing was George A. Romero in every way. In these 9 episodes, I've talked about Doom in Night of the Living Dead. Doom was imminent. No, in Dark Shadows, Doom was here. This was like a Marvel plot come to life, and it felt, this was the big boss fight feel that Dark Shadows tried to present with Patofe, with the Leviathans, but here it's tenfold. This is the big boss fight. This is the main event, and it's going to lead to it. Sorry.
Well, no. I was, as I was interrupting you, sorry. I was going to say that there's a big difference, and the thing that really makes this feel like the biggest of the boss fights. Patofe, Nicholas Blair, even Jeb, they just wanted control of Collinwood.
Yep.
Judah Zachary just wants to see it exactly where it is, just obliterated rubble. And so it's not like he showed up. It's not like Barnabas and Julia showed up and they're in some strange Patofe run, version of Collinwood, or Nicholas Blair run version of Collinwood, where he's producing lots of Adams and Eves and just kind of laughing madly behind his mustache, dressed up like Q from Encounter at Farpoint. No, this is just, wow, somebody hated us this much. They just wrecked the place and left, and this is it. So there's not even an enemy waving a flag that we can give the finger to. This is just, that's it. Show's over.
Do you think that the Gerard Stiles, Ghost of Gerard Stiles / Judah Zachary, is he Dark Shadows' Joker in a way, sort of the way Joker was to DC?
Tell me what you mean by what the Joker was to DC.
Okay, I'll use Heath Ledger's as an example, because that's a lot of people.
He just wants to see the world burn?
Right, he just wants to see it burn.
Yeah. He's not Thanos.
Right.
Because Thanos, they would just have half the cast.
Right.
And Mrs. Johnson, hurriedly with a dustbuster cleaning up Roger. No, this is just, this is exactly the doom that he portended at the trial.
Yep.
And it's happened. And, this is one of my many theological thoughts, is that time really means nothing when you are on the spectral plane.
Right.
It's like, if God is all powerful and he is everywhere, then he is also everywhen. And that may very well be true for all of these other forces. And I think, Judah kind of seeing that the band is really together, that this is the most potent point in the timeline, meaning 1970, Quentin's got his marbles.
Yep.
Julia's not trying to kill Barnabas.
Yep.
Barnabas somehow has his vampirism under control. I mean, Barnabas does a lot of investigating for a man who has to sleep most of the day. And keep in mind, this was late July, early August. So days are pretty long. Yeah. Barnabas only has a few hours at night to operate. I mean, they're having to visit the sheriff at like 8 or 9 at night, which is when the day begins. And, he's only got until about 5 a.m. to get back in the box. So but they do. But Barnabas is so the fact that Barnabas isn't out, having a snack, says something about his own level of self-control, and that all of these things are together. Maybe that's why Judas Zachary just looks at it and says, "Okay, I got to take them all out.
Yeah.
I just got to take them all out."
When we see Professor Stokes in 1995, this is a broken Professor Stokes. What were your thoughts on
that? Sadder than I wanted. He's my hero. He's the hero of the show.
Yeah.
And so, again, when you see Stokes that spooked, and when you see Quentin, who has seen a century of lunacy at this point, over 100 years of weirdness, and that this has broken him. When you see your strongest fighters and they are down, and I mean down, doobie doo, down, there's nothing left.
Right. What I find most interesting is when, after they investigate everything, when they get back to 1970 and they're trying to tell everybody what's going to happen, and Quentin's like, wait a second, hold on. He goes, you're saying that a failed reading, like, no, that's already happened. He goes, it went successful, like their horoscope being read. And it's like there's a lot of events they have to sort of unravel even in 1970, sort of figure out, wait, what went wrong here? Like, why are we so off?
Yeah.
And then what Barnabas is coming to realize, that this guy's lying to us. Christopher Pinox, to me, I love him as Jeb Hawks, but Sebastian Shaw, he was stealing the 1970 episodes of Sebastian Shaw, in my view.
You think so? Why?
Just his character, he was so different from Jeb Hawks, from the parallel time 1970 where he was a scientist who was Jekyll and Hyde. But here he's not only, this isn't just Willie Loomis where he's serving a vampire. Yeah, he's doing that too, but a female vampire, and we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But here's this guy who does legitimately have the ability to read it, to literally read someone's future, and he wants to tell them the truth. And that confliction, I love. It's like, thank you. I wish we would have got, if they would have ever continued Dark Shadows, I wish we'd have got more Sebastian Shaw.
I suspect we would have. I suspect that was a character who was kind of loaded in the chamber, ready to go.
Yeah. What did you think of him, Sebastian Shaw?
Not enough of him.
Okay.
We didn't quite see enough of him. I feel like they kind of wanted to keep him on the payroll so that they could use him as Gabriel.
Yeah.
I feel like 1970, that late period of 1970, is a really dire part of the storytelling, but it's a bridge. It's a bridge to get us from one place to another. And so, he's one of these characters like Roxanne that I feel like they introduced because they have various reasons for wanting to keep him around. But ultimately, what are they really gonna do with them? And they don't do as much as I would like. But maybe they can't. When you get to 1970, which is what I call the Ragnarok sequence, it is not in any way the Dark Shadows universe that we're used to. And 1995 is a good prelude to that, because 1995, they don't go to the Blue Whale.
Nope.
There's no real sense of community. And when you start the show, and for the first few years of the show, there's always a sense of a larger town, of a larger community that Collinwood fits into. And now it's just Collinwood. And it's a depopulated Collinwood. Liz shows up a little bit, but she's out of there. Roger is nowhere to be seen. So suddenly the house elder is Quentin and a little bit of Carolyn, but it's actually Julia. Julia is kind of like the ranking officer at times in Collinwood, along with Barnabas. And there's no going out. There's no Tony Peterson. There's no Blue Whale. There's the most you get of the outside world are Roxanne and Sebastian, and they aren't around much. Where are they in the climax? Where are they when all this is going down? Oh, something happens, but I don't remember.
Sebastian takes Maggie to Wincliffe.
I guess the check-in process is long. It's filling out a lot of paperwork.
Well, when you're writing off Catherine Lee Scott, who's this terrific actress, the process is good.
It is. Are you a relative? No, I'm an astrologer. I see. Well, this is a whole other set of paperwork. I'm glad you told us now. Or do you do numerology? No? All right. Well, then that's a little less.
We got to get out that other paperwork. Oh, you're not related to this woman and you're committing her? Oh, we got to talk, dog.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. But I really like the fact that you actually meet this young girl named I think her name's Haley Stokes, which is
Hallie.
Or sorry,
yeah, Professor Stokes' niece that he's just dropped off at the house.
Yeah, I love the fact.
Happy puberty, David. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like,
here, go change clothes in the same room and pretend like there's nothing weird about it. God. I mean, this is just full of subtext they're ignoring.
Yes, there is. The fact that you have this uncle who's not really taking much responsibility for his niece, who his relatives aren't taking much responsibility.
It's like Stokes says, I can handle like a 6'6", 280-pound, muscle-bound, undead behemoth with no bathroom training. I can handle teaching him. I can handle raising him. But like a isolated 15-year-old girl, forget it. No, Liz, you've done this before. You can do it again. Oh, good. Dr. Hoffman's here. She can explain things because I can explain it to Adam. But no, okay, David, stay in the other wing. Just stay. Just smile and think of English. Just go, David. Go.
What I found most strange is you have pretty much you have the teenage David, a teenage Hal, and they're talking about a playroom, and it's like, these kids are going to get hooked on this playroom. And I give credit to James Storm and the cell job everyone does, like Haley and David Collins did, because they have you believing they're hooked.
There is a real infantile regression that I mean, why would they be interested in this playroom? But the fact is that they are, and the fact that they are just makes it all the eerier.
I love the fact that the kids do try to put a figure of Barnabas so he'll be in there with them, but it's like, nope. He's your ghost of Gerard / Judah Zachary ain't having none of that.
Yeah. Well, the dollhouse, and I've written about this, is the scariest thing on the show for me. And part of that is because it's like you've got Thing behind you. It's just this white disembodied hand that. Thank you, Thing. Anyway, the fact that God, it's got you. It's got you. And good night. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
More of you on this show. That's what I say. You're the real hero of this.
I don't know about that.
Putting up with this craziness. Inviting me into your home like this, just unsavory. You know, there are laws in certain states.
Good night. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm lonely. Anyway, so I have an empty life. So as I was saying, um, something. Oh yeah, the dollhouse. Oh, creepy. Because you know, a dollhouse is an attempt to control something. A dollhouse is an attempt to create a little world when your own world doesn't really work,
Yeah.
and that they can't even control that. And then, well, whose dollhouse is Collinwood's? If this were a DC comic
Yeah.
from this era, the cover would have been the doll David and Hallie in a dollhouse with then, the doll, with the real David and Hallie kind of looming over it. But then you would pull back and all of Collinwood would be a dollhouse that Gerard would be looming over.
Yeah. That would be like next level horror, because it's like literally here's Collinwood and here's Judah Zacher. This is his playhouse. He can do
Sure.
whatever he wants, and that thought of it, and you sort of give that thought in the book too. I think, if I remember correctly, where it's like dollhouse Collinwood. It's like, that's creepy shit,
It
and
is.
it's scary. Is Judah Zachary the biggest villain ever in Dark Shadows?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
he?
I'll save you time. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because 90?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing bad that we know of in primary time Collinwood is going on.
Right.
We don't hear of any horror, any weirdness prior to 1690. After 1690, everything gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And if you pay attention to the timeline, you'll notice that it's Isaacs. Who's the one who presides at the trial? That's Amadeus?
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
Amadeus.
Yeah, the people who are populating Collinwood that we meet in 1960 are Amadeus's line.
Yep.
Isaac's line is Barnabas's, which is why Judah Zachary has no interest in Barnabas at all. He doesn't bother Barnabas, doesn't really care. He doesn't want him hanging out in the dollhouse. But, he goes after making Quentin crazy.
Yeah.
He goes after that line of the family. And the reason is he has no beef with Isaac's line.
Yeah.
But Amadeus's line went off to New York, and then they show up through Daniel.
Yep.
When Angelique wipes out everybody, and so that's really the line that he wants to get. But yeah, he declares that he's going to have his revenge. And my theory is that everything that we have been seeing since then is this slow kind of necrotic decay, and that decay, really starts with Isaac's line taking back, or with Amadeus's line taking back over, because his student Angelique kind of almost does him a favor by getting rid of the line that's has really no problem in Collinwood and concentrating the line of the family that he really wants to knock out all in the house at once.
1795 is a beautiful symmetry, like pre-Judah Zachary, because, like you said, Angelique's his disciple. She betrayed him. Here she is in love with Barnabas, but he don't want her. And, I joke that Barnabas is the worst shot with a pistol, but when that bullet hits that shoulder and she looks up at him and curses him, it's like like you said, she's doing her master a favor, whether she realizes it or not, and it's
She's
all
playing right into his hands.
right. And it's all the, when we get to 1840, it's all the more beautiful when you see Laura Parker come back with Bruno, with this guy.
Laszlo.
Or sorry, Laszlo.
Laszlo with the fez. An amazing fez. Love that fez. That fez is the star of the show, as far as I'm concerned. You can take your Collinsport Afghan. Bring me the fez of Laszlo.
First of all, what do you think of the Collinsport Afghan? Is it evil or is it just there? Because a lot of people think it's evil.
It's just a lazy prop. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could get. I'm such a bad Dark Shadows fan, No wonder I'm not invited on these other shows, because to me, I never had the fascination with it. I want to see the Collinsport frosted glass collection, because whenever you see a frosted glass, you know what's going to happen to it? It's going to get smashed.
Yeah.
It's like Liz comes into the drawing room, sees one of those frosted glasses in Roger's hand, turns right around and goes out.
I love the fact that when Laszlo's standing there and she comes out of the mausoleum, she's like, "Oh, you look so happy for it." She just takes her hand and smacks him. I'm like, "Oh shit, she's pissed."
Yeah.
And like Laura Parker never misses a beat. Just being Angel.
She's fantastic.
She is. She's beautiful. She's amazing.
Yeah, she is. I mean, these discussions are easy to just devolve into fan adoration.
Oh.
But burn Hollywood, burn.
Yeah.
For not turning these people into stars. Bigger stars, like 7-figure salary stars.
Can I give you a weird sort of thing I have when I go back and watch older movies?
Yeah.
And it's weird because I sort of heard Clint Eastwood talking about this. Okay. Eastwood had said about that there was a time when Hollywood didn't want to give television stars a chance because the logic was, well, why would they come pay to see you in a movie screen when they're already seeing you on TV for free? And it's sort of like, but that's been on, by the time Dark Shadows rolls around, that's already been proven wrong with
with Clint Eastwood, with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, with Clint
Eastwood.
It's
an audition reel.
Right, and really, I more think that it's not for Dark Shadows, for Jonathan Fred, for Laura Parker, Catherine Lee Scott, Dawn Briscoe. I could go on. Christopher Pennick.
God bless him, Pennick.
And I know that James Storm was in Clash of the Titans, which I love.
He's in Clash of the Titans?
Yes.
Who's he in Clash of the Titans?
The original. He's in the original. You've never seen the original?
Yeah, I've seen who's he playing the original?
He plays the guy that's with the sword. The main character. He's one of the main characters.
That's Harry Hamlin.
Oh, that's Harry Hamlin? It looks like...
Yeah, it's the hairiest Hamlin in town.
Is it? Okay.
He looks like James Storm. Yeah, but that's Harry Hamlin.
James Storm. I'm so sorry. But, okay, so James Storm should have got more opportunities. So, I think Hollywood's lack of attention to what was going on with these, how good these actors and actresses were, really, I don't want to say it hurt them, but it did. But it also sort of hurts Hollywood's credibility for not putting them in those positions. There you go. Okay. I apologize.
That's okay. I mean, they do kind of look similar. Harry, you know who Harry Hamlin married?
No.
He married Ursula Andress.
Really?
From Dr. No. And from Clash of the Titans. Here he is again.
He does look like James Storm.
But not that hairy. That's the irony. Waxed Hamlin.
Oh,
There was a deli in LA. I used to go get a waxed Hamlin, and it was they really charged you extra for that one. Yeah.
shame on them. So here's
Better than a shaved DeVito. Continue.
what did you when they go back to 1840 and we finally learned it. Okay, here's James Storm's character. Here's he's not really this evil guy. Were you shocked?
Well, no, because I mean, I had read the concordances and all of that. I like the fact that they frankly don't do more with the character Gerard because it keeps him from being Quentin 2.0.
Right.
And he's not even Gerard. I mean, here, when you try and analyze this stuff, let me get this straight. So you've got Michael McLevin, who was playing Judah Zachary, right? What's his name? Michael.
I forget his
Michael McSomething. You've got, and I don't even think he did the voice. So Michael McGuire, I think is his name. Michael McGuire playing Judah Zachary, playing a ghost possessing Ivan Miller, who's pretending to be Gerard Stiles, who is the puppet of Judah Zachary, being played by James Storm. This is a set of Russian nesting dolls of literary analysis that somehow becomes fourth dimensional and turns in on itself. I can't even keep track of it at a certain point. But yeah, the fact that he's just a guy, he's just kind of a sleazy guy whose weddings Quentin is constantly interrupting. Doesn't he interrupt two of his way? He interrupts the wedding to Samantha. He interrupts the wedding to Daphne. It's kind of like, Gerard, have you seen Quentin lately? No, I can't get in touch with him. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you just try and marry me and he'll show up?
It sort of does feel like one of those WWE weddings where something's gonna go wrong. And
sure.
And I love when he marries Quentin's wife, and he's just like, "Congratulations!" Like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, you sort of get why he says it when he's talking to Gerard, and Gerard goes, "I thought you were dead." And you believe James Storm delivers that so good that you believe him. Like and Quentin goes, "So did I. I thought we were done for. I thought we were dead." And
you should call him Snake Plissken at that point.
Right. For all the terror that this brings when you do 1995, 1970, and 1840, there's a lot of emotion in these characters, and they care for each other. Like, it's not like, it doesn't really get into the evilness of it until he becomes Judah Zachary, until Judah possesses him. And so you sort of feel that with James Storm's character. And so anytime he's being evil in the body of James Storm, I do feel sorry for his character because he didn't ask to be possessed by Judah Zachary.
No.
But it makes me hate Judah Zachary to the point of like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. He's a bad man. He's a very bad severed head.
He is. What did you think of the box that they had his head in?
It needed cup holders. It needed a fan and cup holders, and I think it was he didn't have any privacy unless he needed a little string that he could and just make shades come down if he wanted to take off his side ring of hair and just be alone for a little bit and have some Judah time. I mean, it's a wonderful set piece. It's one of the most bizarre. It's it is my constant mission to defend this part of the show, and I think one of the things is not that There was Dark Shadows fatigue, mind you, but there was a line of weirdness that the audience had said, okay, we're comfortable with this. We can deal with a deformed Evan Hanley. We're down with some severed limbs. We dealt with an arm with, Dr. Lang, which was Roger Davis's actual arm. I don't know how he reattached it, but Roger's a very talented man. Judah Zachary's hand, basically thing from the Addams Family again. They're okay with certain severed body parts, but a whole head in a glass box, forget it. That's just too much. And it is, the thing about in 1897, or the pre-1897 portion of the show, they learned the strength of a totally passive villain. One you couldn't read, one who wasn't going to speak. But for a guy who wouldn't speak, David Selby's gestures and eyes and everything like that said a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And then you get to Gerard, who just manipulates people in an even more subtle manner and gets them to do worse things that are sort of inexplicable. I love how characters are just going right, left, and they don't even quite know why they're doing what they're doing, except Gerard's messing with them. And then we get to the ultimate impassive villain, which is his head in the box. Because, one of the things that makes horror horrible is a lack of knowledge, because knowledge is power. You don't know where the shark is going to come from next in Jaws. In The Exorcist, you have a Jesuit, you have two Jesuits and a psychiatrist somehow jammed into two people, walk into a bar. And they still, even they have no idea how to deal with Regan MacNeil. And so that, is just evidence that scary comes from not knowing what on earth is going on or being able to control it. And when you have this head that is listening to you, that is the paranoid's ultimate nightmare, because the minute you turn around, it's going to go, and do that. And is planning something, but you really can't do anything except chuck it in the fire. Nobody ever suggests, let's, call up Gallagher and have him do the sledge-o-matic on the Judah Zachary head. That would have ended the storyline real fast. Right. Which is the only time you'll ever hear of Gallagher being referred to in a heroic sense on television. I think in some ways that's too scary. That's too just it's like a dull ache of neurotic paranoid pain just throbbing away in the background that you can't do anything about. I think that's one of the reasons people don't like this sequence, is that it really, really, really is. It's not just, it's a mummified hand that's flying around doing weird stuff to Humbert. This is a whole other realm of, what the is this?
You know what I kept waiting for with the severed head, really? Because you once you learn that this is the severed head of Judah Zachary, and you're sort of wondering, okay, this guy's power range, it has to be huge.
Yeah.
What I kept waiting for, and I don't know why, was some way, somehow, his body to just materialize and him to take that.
Don't they put him on his body at one point? Isn't it running around?
They do. Julie, this is where Julia gets seduced again.
She's a lonely woman. Barnabas, if you had just been a gigolo,
really,
think of how much trouble would have gotten averted.
It really would have. I mean, she gets seduced again. She you're right, she does connect the head, but nothing comes of it that I do believe. It does sort of, I think, run around, if I'm not mistaken. But
the head?
No.
Oh, the body. Yeah.
I wish the head ran around.
If the head had gotten on Judah Zachary or on Petofi's hand and just kind of crawled around as some weird homunculus, it would have been a good show.
But they don't really, it's not successful is what I'll say, the surgery that they have, because he doesn't fully come back to life. So they take the head, and when it finally gets, again, they had it in a closet. I kept waiting for I know they put his head on his body, but what I kept waiting for was literally just his body to materialize under him and him to cause it. Because
Yeah.
this guy's this powerful. It just, my imagination was running wild, especially watching Dark Shadows, because you never knew what they were going to do. And it's sort of like, man, if that body would have materialized underneath him, I'd have been scared out of my goddamn mind.
If they had taken the head and held it stump side out and just gone, eventually the body would have just popped out. It's like it was scrunched up in there. Or they'd like blown into its ear really hard.
But they have him possess James Storm, the character of James Storm. They, how great was James Storm as Judah Zachary?
He's terrific. He's a Bond villain. He's marvelous. And the more you know about James Storm, because you see him at first and he's like, he's like gonna be Quentin 2.0, and then you find out some stuff. He's playing his country songs at the conventions, and that's nice. And he's got the hat, and you think, he's this kind of hippie kind of guy. And then, like, if you read an interview with him, the man is effing brilliant. And he's this third or fourth generation actor whose grandmother was in Charlie Chaplin's company, and his parents were actors, and he's grown up in England and wandering into theaters and meeting Laurence Olivier like during rehearsal. This is where this man came from. He can get away with all of the crazy hat wearing country music he wants to, because he's paid his dues. And again, first few Hollywood, he brings so much to bear, and he has to live in the shadow of David Selby as the other Victorian ghost, and so that's a thing, and so I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved as really, I think, someone who could be, and who could still be, one of America's preeminent actors.
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think when I look at James Storm and that ghost in 1995, we've talked about those 9 episodes. James Storm really builds Judah Zachary before we see the head of Judah Zachary.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the perfect, really. You gave an amazing theory, and I love it, that Judah Zachary is Quentin's ghost. Well, really, when you look at James Storm, and then you go back and you look at the ghost of Quentin, you sort of see it. The same sort of motions, the movements. There's a height difference, sure, in the way they look. But, and I think even with, what I'll say is, James Storm, and I know they were ending, the show's ending, but they really turn it up with him in 1995. And then when we see the destruction actually happen in 1970, the zombies coming out of the ground after he waves the flag, it's just like, you're going, no. And it's all the more beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
You bet. And I don't know why they made all the decisions they did, but to me, I really wish they had gotten James Storm not as some parallel Gerard that they do nothing with. It's a waste of screen time. If they had gotten him to play Morgan Collins.
Yeah.
Wow. You keep it in the family. But I mean, both Storm and Pennock, and it's so good that they were such good friends and so associated together, because they get discounted, I think, because they appear in the latter half of the series, and it still is the part not as many people are familiar with. But two just marvelous powerhouse actors who have so much fun with what they do and are so intelligent about the way that they do it. And every moment that I get to watch them on screen is a moment that is worth living.
I wish they would have had James Storm play the hero in House of Dark Shadows. I think he would have been an amazing opposite to Jonathan in that role, where you could have had him. I know he's in Night of Dark Shadows.
I don't know if he had been cast yet.
I know. I don't think he was either.
Yeah, he hadn't been cast yet.
But it would have been awesome to see him in that, though. Would have been cool.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
But
now, okay, but now let's counter that. Let's look at something else. I think you're looking at a situation where they would have written the part a little differently.
Right.
Okay, so take that part, and I gotta stand by my homie Roger Davis. What if they had written that part and then given it to Roger? Would Roger have been okay? I'm not saying better than James Storm playing a version of that part written for James Storm, blah, 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 blah. But is that something you'd be willing to see?
I don't think Roger Davis does a bad job in House of Dark Shadows, but I would have loved to see. I wouldn't have mind. Look, Roger Davis, like any other, I think could have played any part on the show. Because he plays an evil painter, pretty much. Or
yeah, he does play an evil painter.
Charles Delaware Tate, he plays that beautifully, and I think he could have played Judas Zachary, sure, easily. Roger Davis was on, you know. So, but so was James Storm. What?
Oh, well, now we're going back. I thought we were talking about House of Dark Shadows.
No, we are. I'm going to get into that.
Okay. Okay.
What I would have loved to have seen is, to me, House of Dark Shadows would have started a little differently. You would have seen this boat coming in, and it would have said Collinsport Shipping Company, and you would have seen James Storm's character getting off with the luggage, and Maggie meeting him there. Sort of, this is how they're a couple.
Okay.
I wish they would have did that with Rogers Davis's character too. And again, it's something. I'm not trying to critique it because I know it's, you know, I love the movie, but it's just a little bit of storytelling they could have added that would have been nice, you know, for anybody.
Yeah. I agree.
But I think if James Storm would have been a part of Dark Shadows at that given point in time, I could have seen him playing the hero in House of Dark Shadows. I love him in Night of Dark Shadows. I think he's terrific. I love the scene between him and David. The car chasing and the fight sequence is great. I love the choreography of it. It's just gritty and fun to watch. But you're right. James Storm, Christopher Pinnock, the late Christopher Pinnock, they don't get enough credit for their roles and their performances.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of wonder if, and of course, Monday Morning Quarterback never loses a game. But I kind of wonder if Dan and the writers had approached the last year, 6 months of the series a little differently, what they would have gotten. And differently in terms of this. Just sat down sometime, you know, early into the 1840 sequence and said, okay, who are our MVPs now?
Right.
Because Jonathan wants out. I mean, it's nice that but he'd already been, you know, and so he was not in the picture. And if he had said, you know, instead of just worrying about what horror story are we going to, you know, rip off next, instead, what actors do we have that we can just give great stuff to and watch them go to town? I think 1841 Parallel Time would have been a lot different.
Yeah. Do you think it? I know it's sort of weird to ask all these years later.
No.
Do you think it just like it? Because I know Jonathan Frid and Dan Curtis's relationship soured. Do you think that just hurt a lot of the things that was going on with Dark Shadows? Do you think that affected it all?
Maybe. I don't know.
You know?
Maybe. I mean, here's the thing: is that Jonathan Frid's a big boy,
Right?
and
Right.
Dan Curtis is he just ate Tokyo.
Right.
He's got chunks of John Milius in his stool. This is a tough man.
Right.
So I think you probably have to get up pretty early in the morning to really. I mean, I suspect Curtis probably saw dollar signs flying out the window, but he also was a very bright, tenacious man. And if there is anything that, there's so many layers of studio politics that I don't know anything about. So I speak in a position of regally privileged ignorance. But the biggest thing I wish Dan Curtis had done or had been capable of doing was moving the show to LA and getting all of these writers from the Twilight Zone and Star Trek and good fantasy writers together and saying, Sam Gordon, we love you. You guys seem exhausted. You're welcome to stick around, but if you don't want to, which it seems like they were kind of done, meaning that I think they were out of ideas. So they said, let's let David Gerrold and Richard Matheson have a crack at it. And,
right.
Maurice Hurley, and let's see what they do.
How would you compare it to 1795, 1897? How would you rank 1995?
It's an unfair comparison because it doesn't go for as long. It is a footnote written in blood.
Right. I think maybe I agree with you in a sense. It sort of is, but as I look, because I know we both love those timelines. We love 1795. We love 1897. But I think for those 9 episodes, what 1995 brings, it brings a level sort of just when you think Dark Shadows can't surprise you, can't top
oh,
it.
Man. Yeah.
It turns it all the way up. And it makes no apologies for it. And I love 1995 for it.
They literally tear the roof off the place. Literally.
James Storm, David Selby, Thayer David, Grayson Hall. Beautiful, beautiful job.
Nancy Barrett.
Nancy Barrett. I wasn't trying to leave her. I apologize.
And
Jonathan Frid. They just beautiful. They really just.
And Clarice Blackburn.
Yep.
Who lies her ass off. And when she just talks about, the golden, wonderful days of Collinwood. That, to me, is her at her craziest. There never were golden, wonderful days. She was this bitter crone who complained about everything.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is intentional. I think that just shows how deep into the muck she has gone.
When I rewatched when Dark Shadows re-aired on the Sci-Fi Channel, and as I was watching it, and the 1995 hit, it's like, how can they top? I'm not saying 1995 tops all those other things, but it's just as big as them. I know it's only 9 episodes, but it's as important, maybe if not more important than what we've seen prior. And I know how crazy that might sound to some.
No, not at all.
Is there anything you want to add before we get?
No, this has been, I think this is one of the best chats we've had on this. I think it's really, I think it's tight. I think it's pertinent. I'm really glad we did this.
First of all, I want to give a huge thank you to Patrick McCray. You are always a pleasure, sir.
It's a pleasure to be on.
Link for the Dark Shadows Daybook will be in the description box where you can go get that on Amazon. Collinsport Historical Society also. Patrick, man, you have a great night. God bless you, brother.
God bless you too. Take care, sir.
You too. Bye-bye.